Weimar was politically very turbulent. It was the Germans' first attempt at democracy. There was great turbulence in the economy at the time as well. And in society, you had a lot of men returning from war. I like to think of it as you have this incredibly turbulent political context that is obviously very difficult, but within that context, a lot of amazing things happened in the realm of art and film and music. In virtually every artistic medium, there was enormous creativity and innovation. It's like a bomb goes off. The architect, Walter Gropius, who was a trained architect, served in World War I. He was quite dismayed and horrified and had a lot of utopian ideas about how the world should look like post this apocalypse. And he funneled those ideas into architectural principles. So he founded this school of architecture called the Bauhaus, and he believed that architecture was a place where all the arts could come back together.
The idea was to blend fine studio arts with technical applied arts. The theory was that artists and technicians needed to learn from each other's skills. They also wanted the idea of an open shop where students would constantly come into contact with other media, other disciplines, be working with students from other influences. And the focus was also on material, learning to understand material, how to use material, what material can do for you and what it can't do. Between the wars in Germany, there was a massive housing shortage. So Bauhaus design was implemented in housing projects across Germany. The idea of prefabricated housing that would be built, then assembled on site. The idea of prefabricated kitchens that would be constructed and inserted like Lego blocks. The idea of using concrete, steel, and glass to create inexpensive but attractive housing. And the idea that housing should be dense with large open garden spaces around it, as opposed to being laid out like a suburb.
It was first located in Weimar, and the school was financed partially by the state. And Weimar was a politically conservative city. The students were known for like what you would think of today as maybe hippies or beatniks. They were known for their long hair and walking around barefoot. Eventually, they didn't want to provide funding anymore. So Weimar moved to Dessau and then moved to Berlin. It's interesting, the time frame of the Bauhaus is 1919 to 1933, which is the exact time frame of the Weimar Republic. So it rose and fell with the Weimar Republic. And when Hitler came to power, he banned the Bauhaus. The Bauhaus was closed. And then what's fascinating about the Bauhaus is that although the school was closed, all these prominent architects left Germany. Then wherever they went, they sowed the seeds of further architecture movements.
Walter Gropius was probably the most significant influence in architecture in mid-20th century America. He fled Nazi Germany in the late 30s. He was offered a job at Harvard to completely redesign their architecture school, which up till 1938 had been very traditional, what we call the Beaux Arts, classical style of architecture. And he taught generation after generation of architecture students modernist Bauhaus philosophy and design. The Bauhaus philosophy is that design begins with understanding materials, and then it's put to serve the user. It should be minimal. The emphasis should be on function, not form or decoration. Form always followed function. Function was the most important aspect. Being honest to material was the second. And then understanding how architecture or design worked within the environment and how it served the user. The closest example is actually 10 minutes away. It's the house Walter Gropius built for himself and his family in Lincoln when he took that job teaching at Harvard. It's considered to be one of the most iconic 20th century residential houses in architecture history. I think if you go into any city, Boston's a great example, you're going to see modernist skyscrapers, buildings everywhere. That is a legacy of the Bauhaus. Bauhaus teachers designed one of the first iconic skyscrapers in this country, the Seagram Building in New York. Mies van der Rohe, who was an architecture instructor and a former head of the Bauhaus who emigrated to this country. You think about IKEA. Their idea of clean, minimalist design, affordable, flat pack, assemble at home, that is definitely a legacy of the Bauhaus. You think of the idea of an open plan house, without walls, without supporting beams or structures. That's another legacy of Bauhaus design.
The history of the school persists beyond the closing of the school. The architects went out into the world and carried Bauhaus principles and ideas further, even if they were no longer associated with an actual school.